questions that are being asked, I'd like to mostly address, so this is my preference, is questions that affect how you walk. Questions about living this out. What he's always told me is, tell them that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be where they're supposed to be. But you need a teacher to teach you what it is you need to be doing. So if you have a question about anything and you're here in Beth Shalom, including this very, challenging subject, you're welcome to come up to the mic. And also on live stream, you're gonna just have to listen because we're not taking it from live stream at the moment. All right, you will get your turn live stream next month. Okay, when the zone 1 will be those people who live between the US, Canada, South and Central Americas, Mexico, that kind of thing. Okay, those people, you get next month. All right, January the 4th. All right, who's coming up first? Daphne?
So I have like 3 questions from Luke. They're separate. Can I ask all of them or just do one?
Well, let's just see how the line gets. But go ahead, you start off and see how quick I answer them.
Okay.
Luke, what?
So I'll ask this first one from Luke 16, 1 through 9.
Okay.
About the master and the manager, the
Yep.
unrighteous manager.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was reading it recently, and I got tripped up by the last part of it, verse 9, that didn't make sense to me. So I reread the whole thing in a different way, and I just wanted to see, you'll probably have to correct me. So I went back and read the whole thing, and the only way that 9 made sense to me was if the master and the manager are both unrighteous, and because it said, because the manager, to me it referred back to the manager saying they might receive me into their houses. Like he did what he did, not to smooth things over with the manager, but to kind of preserve for himself some kind of save face, or when he needs something because he didn't think he was going to be able to work, he would these people might feel kind of indebted to him or whatever. And then the master surprisingly liked what he did, even though it was unrighteous. And because then it says the sons of this age, are unrighteous and unlike the sons of light. So I was thinking maybe if you apply it to yourself today, if you see something that is unrighteous, profiting, maybe it's just because, don't worry about it because it's just worldliness, being worldly, and you're a son of light, so don't worry about it.
All right. Did you read the rest of the verses after verse 9?
I thought I did, yeah. We were reading the whole thing.
Because it does cover it pretty good here, right? So verse 9, okay, after he's shrewdly, so his boss says, you're in trouble, okay, you owe me a debt. So he went to other people and said, okay, you owe 100, give 50. Right, you owe 50, give 25. Whatever. He said he'll cut your bill and let me collect a bunch of stuff and press my boss. All right? So then it says, and I would say, okay, so and the master praised the unrighteous manager because he had acted shrewdly, because the sons of this age are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. And I would say to you, make friends for yourself by unrighteous mammon, that when you fail, they shall receive you into everlasting dwellings. That all sounds like gobbledygook.
Yeah, that's my problem.
Okay, verse 10. He who is trustworthy in what is least is trustworthy also in much. In other words, if you can at least do well even in this unrighteous mammon, okay, then maybe you can learn to do well in other things. Continuing, it says, if therefore you have not been trustworthy in unrighteous mammon, who shall entrust you in the true? And if you have not been trustworthy in what is another man's, who shall give you what is your own? All right, so he's talking about here, again into verse 13, no servant is able to serve 2 masters, for either shall hate the one and love the other, or else he'll cling to the one and despise the other. You're not able to serve Elohim and mammon. So he's saying is, if you can learn to handle the worldly things correctly, then maybe I can trust you with other things. But if I can't even trust you with just normal worldly things, how am I going to trust you with other things? Okay? So when we get to verse 9, I think what he's basically saying is, look, I would say to you, make friends for yourselves by he's saying, go do the right thing with what I've given you, this other worldly stuff, so that when you fail, if you fail because you're making the effort though, they will still receive you. In other words, I can still, because you made the effort. Okay, this man made the effort. He was like, okay, let's start at the beginning. He says, there was a certain manager, rich man who had a manager, and he's so having called him, he said, give an account of your management. And he says, for you are no longer able to be a manager. Uh-oh. He was accused of wasting his possessions. So the manager said to himself, what shall I do? For my master is taking the managership away from me. All right, so then he goes, all right, I'm going to go and listen, now I know what I shall do when I am removed from my managership, they might receive me into their houses. All right, in other words, I'll do the right things so that at least somebody will receive me into their house. So I'll have some place to go. So, because these people owe debt to the rich man, we're still going to owe it even after he got fired. So he's going to go make a deal, which benefited both the person who paid half or less, but also benefited the rich man who got paid, because they were not getting that worked out. So that's the verse that's going to connect us up. He says, I know what I shall do when I'm removed from my managership, that they might receive me. So he says, he called the master's debtors, and he said, okay, 100 measures of oil. All right, take your bill, sit down and write 50. How much do you owe? 100 measures. All right, take your bill and write 80. How much do you owe? So he did this with a bunch of the debtors. The debtors are now pleased because their debt got paid and cut drastically to a lower number. The rich man is probably going to be happy about this because at least he's getting some of it paid back. At least it looked like, according to the way it's worded in verse 1, this looked like bad debt. Deals that were just not working out. The manager was supposed to make sure that deals got paid, okay? Verse 8, the master praised the unrighteous manager because he had acted shrewdly, because the sons of this age are more shrewd in the generation than the sons of light. He's saying sometimes those in the body just don't show the shrewdness. In other words, think things through, like, how can I make this work? Because sometimes I think we just expect it to just work or the above to do it for us. I think that may be some of the things that he might be talking about. But this man at least said, okay, I'm in trouble. I need to do something. Something that's not evil or taking advantage, but let me do something that may fix things for everybody to win and score some points. I'm going to do something that's going to score me some points with those who I'm no longer going to be like the manager over the debts, but also some that my rich boss is going to be okay with. All right? So then he goes, and would I say to you, make friends for yourself by unrighteous mammon. All right, so he made friends, okay, by dealing with finances and things that are worldly things, that when you fail, because he did fail, right? Because getting 80% is still not 100%. Getting 50% is still not 100%. They will receive you into everlasting dwellings. I don't know what the whole everlasting dwellings thing is here. And again, we're just guessing. He's not explaining this little parable to us in detail, okay? He says, however, what I'm really talking about is trustworthiness. So that's where he's explaining the point. The actual details of verse 9, hard to understand exactly what that is. I'll agree, it's hard to understand. I don't really know. But the point is clear, though. He who is trustworthy in what is least is trustworthy over much. And he who is unrighteous is in what is least is unrighteous also over much. In other words, by unrighteous and righteous, let's stop. Don't think Torah there. Just think doing the right thing. He who doesn't do the right thing with the little stuff, how do I trust you to do the right thing with the bigger stuff? And if you don't, and if you're already not doing the right thing with the little stuff, then I expect you're still not going to be doing the right thing with the bigger stuff. Okay? That's when he said unrighteous, right? He who is not handling what is least is also probably not handling what is much properly. Okay? If therefore you've not been trustworthy in the unrighteous mammon, in other words, the worldly stuff, who shall entrust you with the true stuff? So basically he's now comparing the unrighteous mammon with the worldly, fleshly, not real stuff. Why would I give you the real stuff? I can't trust you with just the basic, normal, worldly stuff. Okay? Then he says, and if you have not been trustworthy in what is another man's, how am I going to give you something that's yours? That's a good question too. I mean, if you're not, some of you are like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but are you any good at working for somebody else? I mean, do you do your job? Do you do it well? Do you figure it out? Do you put in the effort, all the other things that go along with that? And you want to have your own business. I think you got to be a good employee first. All right, and figure out how to do that. So then he goes, no servant is able to serve two masters. Now the Pharisees, verse 14, he says, who love silver also heard all this, and they were sneering at him. He's trying to make a point to them. And he said to them, you are those who declare yourself righteous before men, But Elohim knows your hearts, because what is highly thought of among men is an abomination in the sight of Elohim. Oh, so this is the problem. They were putting the flesh and the below above the above. They were not trustworthy, okay? They were taking advantage, they were doing all kinds of things, and he says a bunch of woes to them in Matthew 23, right? Did that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, Sarah Beth.
Okay, so I had a question about what you said last Shabbat in the teaching during the Q&A. You, in your answer to Janet's question, you talked about the nature, changing our nature, and Yeshua went through something very traumatic, but he didn't react like we do, getting scared or whatever. The answer was very helpful, and the question that I have coming out of it, I think, is equally enlightening, but I want to know your thoughts, because they didn't match in my head. Because in your example, Yeshua, he could have stopped what was happening, but he chose not to. We can't, the traumatic things or the things that scare us, we can't stop them. We don't have that kind of power. And the fear or trauma response is a reaction to the fact that I can't stop harmful things from happening. Yeshua chose to let those things happen to him. How can I react like he did when our situations are different?
All right, so I think I remember talking to you a little bit about this. But the thing is, did he really have a choice? Because you said he could have stopped it, but could he really? He'd already said to the Father, if this cup can pass, let it pass, and he had already got a no answer. So the answer is he really different? Did he really have a choice? I mean, he did, I suppose, but then all of this gets derailed. So he really didn't have a choice, did he? He already had committed to, I'm going to walk this out, and it's going to play out the way it's going to play out. Now, his difference, Sarah Beth, is that he knew what was coming, and he knew what was coming afterwards. We don't. Well, we should know some of the things as far as what comes afterwards, but we just don't know what's coming. You should know that things are going to get ugly at times, and it's going to be really hard and terrible, and yet this is all towards something that's much better in the future, right? And we go through our challenges, and hopefully we learn from them, and we grow from them, okay? Lisa.
A few days ago, I was listening to a teaching, and you mentioned that the majority of people that are here are well-churched, and I'm not one of those. So I haven't had a lot of scripture, and for 35 years, I've been trying to finish reading the whole scripture through once. So Yah willing, in 2 weeks, that'll be done. But I thought I would try to do it this morning, and I got stuck on Revelation 10, chapter 10. And reading it, it came up with 3, I don't know if they're questions or observations. The first is the messenger when he's describing that he's robed in a cloud and a rainbow on his head and face like the sun and feet like columns of fire, and that he walked on, or he put his foot on the water and on the dry land. All I could think of was Yeshua, that to me, like that describes Yeshua. And then the next thing was the little book, and I'm wondering if that is the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, because it's so sweet like honey, especially for all of the Sunday Christians that think it's so sweet and that they don't need to do any work. They just need to believe like you teach. And then how sour that's going to be when they find out that that's not the truth. And then the last thing he said, and he said to me, you have to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and sovereigns. And all I could think of is, that's what you're doing now. To me, that's who you are.
Well, I appreciate that. Okay, so I don't have a strong opinion on all of the things that you said as far as I don't study Revelation at this point because that's not halakhically necessary. as far as like being able to walk this out. I think some of your insights certainly, have potential for making sense, okay, and being good answers there. I don't, as far as the little book, we could speculate about the little book. I don't think that's the New Testament. I think, here it is. This is a fairly little book, all things considered. See, this is a big book. All right, so, and this has got everything in it. So I'm not saying that what the little book is and everything else. Like I said, I have read Revelation more than once, but have not studied it to figure out all of the symbology and what it all means. So I will just appreciate your comments for right now, okay? All right, Melissa.
I've been here 2 years and this month, and you've given me a foundation, and I appreciate that because I've never been in this walk before. And I want to make sure I don't have Christian junk in my head. But I don't fully understand Judaism, and I think a lot of people don't, because when I ask them, they say, I don't really know either.
Right.
But so can you I'll just make it short and ask, can you really define it for us so we don't go there?
Well, it's not, look, you have the remnant after all is said and done, right? The northern kingdom and southern kingdom are split, and then you have, Judah ending up in Babylon, and then they come back out of Babylon, and so we've just had this southern kingdom, which now becomes not only the tribe of Judah, which also included some from the other tribes, not much, and of course the Levites that were in the southern kingdom, and Benjamin, all right? So it's funny because even Paul calls himself a Jew, a Benjamite, okay? Because Jewish became a tribe, a nation, a religion, a belief system, right? It's not just one simple thing. I can say I'm an American. That can mean lots of different things, except that I live or was born in this country. Live in, I'm a citizen of, or was born here, whatever. I could believe almost anything and still be an American. So just saying I'm an American doesn't mean anything in terms of my religious beliefs. It doesn't have to say anything about a lot of my beliefs, okay? But saying that I'm Jewish, the way that Judaism would define it, defines an awful lot of things, because it actually is a term that encompasses so many more things. So what does it look like, this whole idea of Judaism? All right, so Judaism is the Jewish understanding of how to walk Torah, the culture and halakhic things that have to do with Torah, okay? So they don't all do everything the same, by the way. Some of them adhere to what's in these books. Some of them don't. There are Jews out there who haven't read anything in this book. I'm just talking like from Genesis to Malachi, okay? Or Genesis to 2 Chronicles, whichever book you have, but they've not read any of that either, or barely. If anything, they maybe read a little bit of the first 5. Okay, so saying someone's Jewish doesn't really mean a whole lot, but when people talk about going into Judaism, guess what? Judaism, okay, you've been in the church? All right, if I told you, what churches have you been in? What denominations?
Baptist, charismatic, Pentecostal.
All right, so if I was telling you that I'm going to go be Catholic, would you know a whole lot about that really? It doesn't mean, so if I said I'm going to be Christian, if I told you I was going to be Christian, would it be different if I was Baptist than if I was Pentecostal? Would that be different? Would it be different if I was Lutheran? Would it be different if I was, I could keep adding more on there, right? So just saying, well, what is a Christian? It could mean a lot of different things, right? So when you ask about Jewish and Judaism, it can mean a lot of different things, okay? The Reform are not the same as a conservative, who are not the same as the Orthodox, who are not the same as a Reconstructionist. And by the way, let's just go take any one of those groups, and they're not all the same inside their groups. Okay, you can go to 15 different Orthodox groups, and they do not agree with each other, all right? And there's probably a lot more groups than that. There was as many different Jewish flavors as there were Christian flavors, especially back in Yeshua's day, okay? Now, back in Yeshua's day, there weren't any Christian flavors. There wasn't any Christianity, but there certainly was a lot of Jewish flavors. All right? There were dominant ones, like the beliefs of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Those are the 2 major. Third one would be the Essene community, okay? All right? But there's a lot of flavors, okay? So what you're asking is a hard question to answer, except that in the idea, it's a mix of belief, culturally and belief religiously. There's a big mix of those two things. Because being a Jew is very much cultural as well as, a belief system. Being a Methodist or a Pentecostal or Baptist doesn't have anything to do with culture necessarily. It's a belief system. It's separate to itself, okay? But being Jewish has a whole lot more identity connected to it than just your religious belief system, all right? So the ones who are actively, walking out their walk as Jews do put a lot more weight on the writings of the rabbis than I would, okay? Or that anybody Christian would, for sure. Did that help at all?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I don't go that way. Because also last night you said that Yahweh didn't give us our jobs, but he watches to see how we perform it according to him. And also I'm trying to figure out, he's pleased with us when we obey Torah, when we obey the fruits of the Spirit, keep the feasts, Shabbats, and all that. So he's not an emotional Yah. And if we obey him, that's how we show him that we love him. But it seems like when I was married several times, my husbands were like emotionally detached. I had a provider. I was legally married, but didn't really have a husband. And so I'm trying to figure out how I have a personal relationship with Yahweh and connect with him. Can you help me there?
Okay, think of it like an adult parent, okay? The adult parent doesn't have that same relationship they had with you when you were 5 and they could pick you up and hold you in their arms or hold you on their lap or whatever and carry you around when you were 3 or 2 or whatever, especially small. An adult parent, and you're an adult also with an adult parent, cares about your success in life, your growth, your happiness, right? Are you a successful, functioning adult? That's all the Creator is. He's a father. Well, I don't say it's all, but that's his way of communicating with us is the idea that he's a father. And as your father, and you being an adult, he wants you to successfully walk this out, which is not just about obedience. It's about becoming in character and likeness of him. He's watching you, like a parent would any child, grow up. He's watching you grow. A lot of parents have a lot of heartache watching their children not grow, right? It's hard. Don't nod your head. Your children aren't even like teenagers. Okay, wait till that happens. All right, so I'm sorry. I'm like saying it's hard to watch your children not grow up, and the person's nodding their head. Their kids aren't even like teenagers yet. Wait till you watch them when they're supposed to be grown up, and they're 18, 20, 30, and they're not behaving like adults, and they haven't grown up. That's a harder thing to deal with. Now the nods are coming from the older folks with the older children, okay? And you watch your 30-year-old, 35-year-old just struggling to even function. Not so bad watching your 10 or 12-year-old not function, okay? They're kids, okay? So Abba's not that worried about just obedience. Obedience is a measuring stick of your trust in him, okay? And you're believing what he says. And so he knows in that trust that that's a love language thing, but it's about the trust. All right, not just obedience. Because remember, a bunch of people obeyed and got left dead in the desert anyway because they didn't do it in trust. They just did it because they were afraid. Or they did it because of some other motivation other than that trusting love, that awe and reverence. And so what he really wants to do is he's watching you grow or not grow. Okay, does that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, so there was one more thing you said that I want to address. I got to remember what it was now. Oh, man, what was it? I'll think of it maybe. If I think of it, I'll say it even after you go away from the microphone. But there was something else. Anyway, next. Oh, over here. Olivia?
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Mishpachah.
See, usually I'm reading your words on the screen because they type them in for me because you're on live stream, but now you're here.
I'm so excited. It's so good to see you. Everybody. Okay, let's see if I can contain myself. I have a lot of questions, Rabbi. But I will not, because I know Michael's got one over there. Do you have a preference, like shotgun ones, like yes or no?
Just
or
start with one, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay, I'll do.
Sometimes I answer them very quickly.
I have like a section of shotguns that I'm thinking you could.
Oh,
yes
I'm
or
sorry.
no
I
to.
just remembered the answer from Melissa. Sorry, I got to answer you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes these things happen that way. Melissa, okay, where'd you go? Over there. All right, so here's the thing. You asked because you were worried about how do I make sure I don't end up in a ditch, basically? How do I end up not in Judaism or Christianity or other thing? Is that not exactly what Ephesians 4 teaches us? That if you would find that anointed, appointed, you would not be tossed about by every wind of whatever, okay? It's when you don't have that you're more likely to have the problem. It's not just not knowing about Judaism enough or not knowing about some denomination of Christianity enough. It's do you have somebody you trust in leadership? Because that's literally what that Ephesians 4:11 is about. Well, really verse 13 or whatever, going further on, 12, 13, 14, okay? And so that's how you stay out of the ditch. But some of you are like, well, I found leaders and they're the ones who put me in the ditch. Well, do a better job of finding a leader. Okay? But that is the role. Does that help? All right, good. All right, now back to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start with my hardest one that I've had for a while. I have a lot of problems with prayer. And it was interesting that you even mentioned it earlier.
What's your problem with prayer?
Well, specifically right now, having 3 years of disability, I've had a lot of people offer prayers for healing.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like in Christianity, even some in this walk, that's the first thing people go to, offering prayers for healing.
Sure.
After 3 years, it's hard emotionally. And I'm sorry if it offends anybody.
No. What's hard? That you feel like prayers don't work?
It seems like people push it. Like, that's the only thing they want to pray for is because I'm young and I'm disabled. You shouldn't be that way. That's not Yah's plan for you, basically. And.
All right. That's a really good thing. Let me just say it real quick.
Okay.
All right. To all of you wonderfully motivated, but very wrong people. All right? Knock it off. If you want to pray for Olivia, just pray for her. Why are you projecting into her that she needs these things? And it's only helping her feel worse because are you magically going to fix the problem with your prayer? Do you actually expect that your prayer, I'm not saying you shouldn't pray believing things will happen, but I mean, do you think that that's, go pray first and then go back and tell her when she's healed that, hey, I prayed for you, okay? But she has other things in her life because you know what, this disability may never go away. So she may need somebody to be there for her for a lot of other things in her life, with this being now her new status in life. So I'm not saying we shouldn't believe anything's possible, believe it. But you're hearing now, and this is not just for her, anybody that you go to who doesn't ask you to pray, then don't impose it in that way. Just go home and pray. You want to pray for her? Pray for her. She doesn't need to know. Why does she need to know? Okay? Well, people love that. It's a very Christian sort of thing. Oh, I'll pray for you. Thanks. I don't know. What do you say? Okay? But just reminding her over and over again that people are praying and she's been praying and she's still there, that doesn't help her in her belief and her walk and everything else. Okay? It's good that you love somebody enough that you think she shouldn't be in this condition, so go before the Father and you beseech him, and that's great. But not so great if you keep kind of pushing that on her and saying, well, you shouldn't be like this. Well, she doesn't need to hear that. What if this is what he allows her to stay at? Every time you say that kind of stuff, it's not helping her. All right? I think that I've said this in the past, but I think you need to think about these things, which is it's not helpful, anything you do, unless the person thinks it's helpful. Okay? You can ask something like, would you like me to pray for you? At least you're asking. I don't even think you need to do that. Just go pray. You want to pray? Pray. I think it's great if people, we do take corporate prayer, and if you notice, most of the prayer needs don't get spoken out loud. So we pray for all of them anyway, right? But if you're aware of something, you got to be really careful that if you bring it up and discuss it with the person, you may not actually be helping when you think you are. Also, free advice, not very free. There's a price sometimes the person pays getting the free advice. Don't just offer free advice. Elder can tell you this, and I'm sure he does the same thing. I don't give out any advice that nobody asked for. Right? Right? Same thing? Yeah. Just wanted to look. Michael's a little big blocking my view. All right, so anyway, all right? But, we don't give out free advice. We don't walk up to people and say, I really think you need to straighten this out or straighten that out, everything else. I've got people asking me, hey, if you see anything, please say something, and I still don't if you don't ask me specifically about things. So I don't like to give out free advice because it's not going to necessarily be received well if the person didn't ask for it and desire it, all right? And so did that help, Olivia?
That was perfect.
Good.
I actually don't even need, look, you got rid of like a whole paragraph just by continuing talking. It was like, okay,
happens a lot.
There's that, okay.
Happens a lot.
Praise Yah.
All right, so since you're up here, we're going to give you one more. Go ahead, get another one out.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll go to this one. It seems like when we test ourselves, Scripture talks about we should test ourselves to see if we do that to see if we have Yah's favor towards us. But our life circumstances seem to not change. How do we know we have Yah's favor when it doesn't look favorable?
All right, so first and foremost, this is a hard thing, okay, what I'm about to say. You have to find some way to have shalom in your circumstance. And, even harder, have gratefulness and appreciation, even in your trial, even in your handicap, even in whatever other things are happening in your life, that you're still alive. He still popped your bubble. You still have a husband. You still have in your case, I'm just saying, but you still have all these things. He brought you here, right? So I think that he allows us to stay in certain places until we finish learning the lessons in that place. But he also may allow you to be in that place because other people need to learn lessons while you're in that place. So you may be thankful that your being in this place is blessing somebody else and being able to learn something from it, okay? So that's, I think, a really important thing. Is that good?
Yeah. Thank you, Rabbi. It was great.
Perfect.
This is great.
Good.
Love you, Mishpachah.
All right, good. All right. Michael.
So in Matthew 18, starting in verse 15, sorry, I need to add some context to this. So there's been a couple of things happen over the last couple of months, and I want to know, I guess if my interpretation of this is correct. So Matthew 18:15, if your brother sins against you, go and convict him between you and him alone, and if he hears you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not hear, take with you one or two more, that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word might be established. And if he refuses to hear them, say it to the assembly. And if he refuses even to hear the assembly, let him be to you like the nations and a tax collector. So, I've had a couple of times where I have made a mistake by, some mishpachah, either brother or sister, doesn't matter. And I've been addressed for it by that individual and had in my mind to correct it, had come up with a way to correct it. However, what ended up happening was before I even get the chance to either have the conversation relevant to display my integrity, or, the following week or month or however long to be able to display my integrity to fix the problem, I get a phone call from you, or I get a phone call from elder about, the issue that I've already had. So it seems like that the way I'm interpreting that is that whoever has addressed me has gained their brother, but not had the patience to be able to recognize that they gained their brother, jumped over the second step, verse 16, about bringing witnesses, and then went straight to the assembly. If my interpretation is correct, that you are the representative of the entire assembly, therefore the assembly. So I don't know, am I
All right,
off there? How to use that?
Matthew 18 is almost never used. Everybody's aware of it, but they don't ever use it. They don't, and if they did, they wouldn't understand how to use it correctly. All right, so first of all, this is not, it says if your brother sins against you. So what do we define sin as? Yes, this is if someone does anything that causes you harm, or this, that, or the other thing in some way. So it doesn't necessarily mean they broke a commandment, but yeah, they did something. So you go and you have a conversation with your brother, all right, so that the thing can get resolved. Of course, a lot of you don't do that. You come here first, you talk to me or elder or whoever first, all right? That's not scripture. But then again, a lot of you are not approachable. So they're afraid to come to you with their problem, so they come to us first, okay? Now, as you know, we've come to you and said, look, and we do it as gently as we can. We say, look, there's a problem. We just want to make you aware of this is happening, whatever it is. Can you do whatever needs to be done with this thing? And of course, it did come from somebody else. So it's not so much about winning over your brother. This is more about a brother that is actively doing something to you and not stopping. Otherwise, you don't need to bring witnesses. So it's not an incident report here. It's a habitual problem. Somebody's doing something that on a consistent basis is causing you a problem, and then you go to them and they're not interested in hearing you or stopping, and so now you got to bring witnesses to make sure that you've actually said what you need to say and that it was heard. By the way, the witnesses are not witnesses of what happened or witnesses for you or for whatever. The witnesses are simply people with enough reputation that if they said you went to your brother and said something, people will believe that you actually did it, that you actually went to your brother and said something, okay? So it's about their people that have integrity. Wouldn't be just like, well, of course they say that they're your friends. So probably not best idea to bring your two best friends with you as witnesses, all right? Okay, because it's about, the witnesses are there to validate that you went to your brother and said whatever you needed to say, all right? But really, I think the context here is something's happening that is desired by the one going to his brother, is desired by them to have stop, all right? You're doing something that's causing me harm, I'd like you to stop it. You might even not be aware, you might not even be aware that you're doing it. I want to bring it to your attention. This thing that you're doing is causing me a problem. All right, so then they ignore you and they keep doing it. So now you might need to bring some witnesses with you that says, look, I came to you. I really would appreciate it if you knocked this off. I brought these witnesses so they know I've said that to you, and I appreciate that, right? Okay. And of course, they're still not listening, then you might need to bring it to leadership. Now, in the context of a small group, sometimes that situation gets sped up quite a bit, and people just go right to the leadership. That can happen. The main thing is that we help resolve the problem, okay? Now, if you did go to your brother, then have some patience in dealing with your brother. You don't have to come to the leadership also, unless you're convinced that your brother didn't hear you, okay? And then we can get involved and say, hey, listen, somebody brought this up. I don't know what happened, but just, so you're aware. If it is happening, can we get it to stop? That's mostly the way we actually say what we say, all right? All right, did that help? I don't know.
It did, but it kind of makes me also now wonder that do I need to work on my approachability? Because it's happened twice in 2 months.
But everybody needs to work on their approachability, okay?
Okay.
I get people all the time coming up to me saying, well, I can't approach them. Part of it is not just them not being approachable. Part of it is you're being afraid, not you, but people just being afraid to go to people. Because you've already got PTSD from going to other people and getting it blown up in your face, and you don't want to have that. Well, going to leadership isn't going to help that either. In terms of your relationship with this person, they know that you went to leadership about it, okay? And the best part is, this is my favorite one. Elder, you can probably back this up, right? Okay, my favorite one is they'll come to leadership and want us to handle it, but we can't mention where it came from. I didn't see his face, but I heard Billy laugh, okay? And we're like, how am I supposed to help you? Well, can we just address this? But they're gonna know it's coming from you. So then they're all like, well, then they tie my hands behind my back and say, I want you to fix this, but don't do it in a way that they know it was me. But usually it's something that it has to be you. You're the one that's obviously the one that brought it up. So don't come to leadership unless you're actually, if you want us to fix something, unless you're actually willing to have your name be involved in everything else, because not always, but sometimes that needs to happen. Not every time. There are things that come up that we could probably deal with without bringing your name up, but there's more often than not, if you're gonna wanna get involved in getting something fixed that has to do with you, okay? Now, of course, there's another level of busybody who wants to come and talk about somebody else and it had nothing to do with them, but they witnessed something and it bothered them. It didn't involve them at all. There was no sin against them, okay? It didn't cause them any harm except that they had to see it and they didn't like it. And then they want to come and bother us, and we're not supposed to use their name either, okay? So that's why we have a lot of challenges. All right, Michael?
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
No problem. All right, Taylor.
Okay, so I have a question, and I'll ask you in counseling if you can't answer it up here, but I wanted to ask anyways. So it's about, so in the scripture when it talks about like, don't go to like mediums and things like that to, reveal the future and all that stuff. So I was wondering.
Yeah, don't go to mediums. Go to extra large if you Right to extra large.
So for people.
If you have to, large, but not medium.
So for people who, I've known a lot of people in my life, and I've had instances myself where there'll be certain people who have gifts where they can naturally know something about another person or know weird things happening. Like my aunt, she has like this feeling, she doesn't really try to do anything like, but she like, sometimes she'll call or ask you, hey, are you good? Or, she won't tell you that she had it, but I know because she'll mention it. And then I've had like, I'll look at there'll be like things that'll pop up on my feed sometimes. Like recently I just saw these girls who were talking and they were just like, oh yeah, we don't know what it is. It's just a gift that we have. And we just know things and it just happen. And for me, sometimes I'll have like random thoughts about things. And then later on, somebody will come and say, okay, that thing happened, but I won't ever mention it to anybody because I'm just like, so with that verse, and then for people who have that stuff naturally, who aren't like pursuing like, hey, let me go read this crystal ball for you. And like, how do you just ignore that about yourself? Or not for me personally, but like anybody else, like, do you ignore that? Or like, how do you, with the scripture being there? Because it feels like it's like the same thing. So.
Yeah, okay. Don't understand any of that. I mean, I understood what you said, but I don't understand any of that area of the universe or whatever. Where people have, a lot of people have come out of occultic backgrounds, other backgrounds where a lot of this stuff is very common, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't have any doubt that there are people I've talked to that have had experiences and things like that that are real and that they, share with me as part of their kind of, getting to know me getting to know them. It's kind of where they came from. But there's a big difference, I think, between seeking one out, and if you're having an experience and you want to then at least maybe let a leadership person know if it's something that's kind of going to affect a bunch of people, but if it's just one person, kind of like your aunt does, just calls you up just to make sure everything's okay. That's not the same thing as seeking something out, okay? You get a feeling and somehow tapped into something, and you might really feel like, hey, I have a feeling something's going on with something. Go and see if maybe something's happening. And that's you seeking to validate something you're sort of sensing as opposed to them seeking you. Does that help?
So it's not the same thing?
I don't think it's the same thing necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from. I don't understand enough about it. Okay, so, but if you have a sense of something, you can sort of gently probe to see if maybe that thing is going on or whatever. It's just sort of like gently sort of test the waters there by, like your aunt would do, right? She would just call you up and say, is everything okay? You know? All right. Daphne?
I have my second question from Luke. It's 13:10 through 16, the parable about the woman bent over and she was healed. But my question is from 16, where he's saying, and this one being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound. The whom Satan has bound part confuses me. Because I thought that he doesn't, that's not really what he does. He just tests us with our weaknesses and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff that pops up that unless he explains it, we're going to sit there and just wonder. Some of this is idiomatic phrases. And also, let's understand that Satan is not a person always. It's a term for an adversary, okay? So this is not a desired condition, okay? So there has been something done that has bound you up. And so shouldn't this person be loosed on the Sabbath is what he's saying here, okay? And so, but again, not every phrase, unless he explains it, is going to be that simple and that clear. So I have no idea why he said that.
Since that was quick, can I ask my last one?
Sure. Well,
Okay. So my last one is on the same page is the next parable, 18 through 21, where it's like, the kingdom of heaven is like this and like that.
Right.
And it's basically a couple of ways of saying something really small became something big,
right.
basically. How are we supposed to think about that? I don't really I feel like I'm missing a piece of that. So it was small and it became big. What does that really mean?
I would think it's a little more obvious than that. I mean, in other words, in the first one, he says like a mustard seed, so something that's really small can grow into something really big. Okay? And after all, it started with Yeshua in 12, and look what it's turned into, right? Okay? And so it's just giving you an idea that don't look at the size of things. It starts small and then it grows. There's also, of course, the sort of same thing but different when it talks about hiding the leaven into a measure of flour. Okay, now it's talking about hiding something inside of something and then it causes it to expand and grow. Okay, that's another idea of how he gives you certain things and then it starts to bloom and grow in you and expand in you. Okay? Did that help? Good.
So I originally had 3 questions. I asked 1, you answered 2.
Well,
Which
I'm a shrewd manager.
well, it's wonderful. It's great. But I have a third question here, and I've typed it out, so it's going to take me a minute to read it. But I guess to preface it a little bit, I'm working with Laura Everett. Ashley and I are to try to come up with some better techniques to work with the children and work with our children. And one of the very first things that occurred to me is that it's not the children that are causing the things with the children. It's us. It's me and my wife. And
We could have told you that.
well, but I'm a bonehead. What can I say? But anyway,
It's really not. It's a combination.
so well, it's largely us. But in going through some of that and having some of the conversations that we've had with Laura, I've had to come to realize that, that things aren't, maybe what they should have been or could have been. So I'm going to get into it now. So for context, I am one of Rabbi Steve's somewhat elusive sons, and my wife is one of his daughters. So Ashley didn't ask for that, but Rabbi, being anointed as he is, could see that she needed and still does need that. For me, I had to first recognize that I didn't get what I needed when I was a child. Then I had to own my own responsibility to fix it with the knowledge and understanding that I don't myself know how to fix it, which means I have to look to someone who has what I want, is what I want to be, or does what I want to do. For me, Rabbi Steve is all of that. So I did ask to become a son, but I asked on the foundation that I seek to submit to Rabbi Steve with a submission identical in type and degree to the same submission with which Yitzchak submitted to his own father Avraham. So I want to ask these questions to help other men who may also be your sons now or in the future. See, my own father didn't teach me many of the things that I actually ended up needing as a grown-up trying to figure out how to adult. Likewise, despite his reliable and consistent physical presence, he was almost entirely emotionally absent. But we didn't get the opportunity to connect. And so I learned that to be a good son, I need to be a quiet son who never complains or has any problems, who never has a bad day, don't disrupt the rhythm, don't raise a concern, don't have an issue, don't approach dad. My mom also was not a safe place to go to with challenges that children, preteens, and teenagers go through. I remember one time I was having a particularly difficult time, and I felt like I didn't want to be here anymore, and her method of consoling me out of that was to smash me over the head and yell at me. So in that fraction of a second, she went from being the person I trusted the most to never being a safe place to go to with any concern ever again. So as much as my internal feedback says don't approach dad, it also says don't approach mom. This is adversely affecting in a massive way not only my relationships with my own children, but my ability to raise them to be able to be strong, independent, emotionally stable, and emotionally intelligent adults capable of avoiding the perception-reaction chain, slowing their minds down, evaluating situations, possible options, probable outcomes, and selecting the most appropriate options. When I first asked for the privilege to be one of your sons, you told me that I have to check in from time to time. I've neglected to do that because I don't know how to navigate approaching you as dad. See, approaching you as rabbi is easy because we have a structure and a system and a process to schedule and meet and discuss what needs to be discussed, but I don't know how to involve you in my life in that way without being a bothersome child who's just in the way of accomplishing what you need to accomplish in that moment. So how do I overcome that?
All right. So, and you can see that that whole set of beliefs would also affect how you raise your children. All right. So first of all, you need to figure this out so that you're learning how to do what you need to do for them. Because you don't want to be like your dad or your mom where you're not there for them, where they can feel, my father was not what I wanted him to be. I mean, it wasn't the worst, the horrible thing, but we just did not necessarily connect in a kind of real deep way. He wasn't the guy I could go to without being judged, criticized, whatever. So exactly some of the things. So I had to decide I was going to be different. Now, I had to figure it out through a lot of books and videos and courses and things, just how to understand why we do what we do and why we don't do what we don't do, and what I just wanted to be what I wish my father had been. So it wasn't even like I had to see it done by anybody. I knew what I didn't get and what I needed, so I just had to provide that to mine, which helped me to understand how to do that. Okay, so you know what you needed, okay? You still need it now because you never got it. But here's one of the problems for all of you that are looking to kind of fix that little challenge, okay? Which is you can't think of yourself as a burden. I don't want to call because I don't want to be a burden. Don't you want your children to come to you? You got 3 young ones. Don't you want them to come to you? Are you going to look at them like they're a burden? No. So then why would you think that myself or somebody else who's trying to do that role experience for you? It's really more of a role experience. It's not really so much that, I'm going to actually be like your father, but the idea of giving you that experience, right? Well, then you have to do what you expect your children to do. You have to be willing to come and not feel like a burden. Which, by the way, almost every son and or daughter who I'd work with, so to speak, and trying to help them experience the role always says the same thing. Oh, well, I don't want to just call you because I don't want to, How else are you going to get to experience what that whole thing is like if you don't actually experience it? Now, if you do call or contact somebody and it is, something you should have been able to handle yourself, then guess what? Just like I would have told my own child, hey, I appreciate you calling, but that's something you should have been able to do yourself, okay? Now, if they say, well, I don't know what to do, okay. I can either help you or I can tell you this is something you need to go figure out on your own. The resources are available, you can go figure it out. Okay, so sometimes as a parent, you do for them. Sometimes as a parent, you give assistance and guidance. Sometimes as a parent, you say, no, you need to go do this yourself. But you gotta know when to do which one, right? That's the hard part, okay? When to do which one. Because if you do helping them too much when they should be doing it themselves, now you're enabling or entitling them to, so you're not helping them to actually grow up. But if you don't give them the help that they do need and you send them out there on their own, they can get in all kinds of trouble. So it's not an easy thing to do, right, discernment-wise. Okay, but how are you going to learn that? Well, you got to learn by coming to me, for example, in this case, and not being afraid of it being a burden. All right, let me say this to you, all of you. Please pay attention. Do not offer anything to anyone unless you actually want to follow through. So in other words, if you tell your child, you can come to me for anything, you better follow through and they should be able to come to you for anything. That doesn't mean you're going to just do everything for them, but they should be able to come to you for anything, right? So you also have to have the other side of that. If somebody offers you, then take them at their word and accept that. So if I tell you, here's my phone number, you can call me when you need to, why would you edit your need to, if you feel like you need to call, but you're thinking, oh, but he's going to think it's silly, it's this, it's that. But I told you to call. In other words, I made the offer. So take the offer at its word and make sure you're also making an offer and you mean your word the same way when you make the offer to someone, all right? Does that make sense? Because some of you argue with me, not really, but you argue with me like, well, I didn't want to be a burden. I was like, well, I didn't ever tell you don't to worry about that. I just said, call me when you need me, all right? And some do, and they get very blessed because the relationship's there. They feel safe, they feel comfortable, they say all these things. Some don't because they're just still editing, because they won't accept what was offered in the way it was offered. Why? Because they hadn't had the experience with their parents that way, so they don't trust it. Okay, because, oh, my father offered, then I go and I get punched in the mouth. All right, well, I'm not going to punch you in the mouth. Okay? All right? And it could have been just verbal. I'm not saying literally, but, you could have blown up in your face in some way. But the only way you're going to know is to try. And I told everybody, look, if you call and it's something that you don't need to really be calling about, I'll tell you. But let me tell you. All right? And by the way, I almost never tell anybody any of that because they almost always, I know you're trying to figure this out. So almost always it's fine. All right? I don't think I can even think at any point too many times where I've said, hey, listen, this is something you didn't really need to call about. Okay? Anything else?
No, that was it. I'll work on it. Thank you, Rabbi.
But all of you, if you had bad parenting done and you have young children, because if you have adult children, you blew it already. But I mean blew it already, I mean your ability to do much at this point is very minimal. Okay, you already did what you did. They're not ready to listen to you at this point if you blew it, all right? But if you got little ones, think about what you would want if you were them, that even if you didn't have it, that you would have wanted your father, if you're the man, or your mother, if you're the woman, to have been there for you in that way. That's what I did with my children. I tried to be the father I didn't have. I didn't know how to do it, but I knew what I was expecting, okay? So I figured if I just do what I would have expected, that should be better than what I got, okay? All right, Selena. Nope, sorry, Olivia.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm trying to think of what I want to do. Our relationship with Yah is based on his expectations,
That is correct.
But we pray about everything as if he has a plan for everything. How do we know when we're waiting on Yah for something versus when we're supposed to be doing something about it?
All right, this is a very simple question, all right? You wait on Yah when you've done everything you can do. Is that simple enough?
That's a great answer.
Because stop being Christianized or some other whatever eyes where we just want to, he's got a plan and I just got to figure out his plan. No, figure out your plan. Do the best you can. If your plan works, that's great. If it doesn't work, he'll get your attention that plan is not the best plan. You should get counsel about your plans. Not every little thing in your life, but if you have a bigger plan aspect of your life, probably good to get counsel. I mean, if you got financial plans, go talk to a financial advisor. If you got health plans, go talk to a health advisor. You know what I'm saying? Get counsel from a professional in the area you're having plans in. But when you've done all, then you leave it to him. That's when you wait on him. Does that help?
Yes, that's really good.
All right, good.
One more real quick. The term power of prayer, if you could just annihilate that for me, that would be awesome, because it's a very Christianized way of thinking, and it implies nothing about who has the power versus prayer having the power.
All right, make it real simple. All right, real simple. Let me finish before you guys get excited or upset about this, okay? You don't need to pray about anything, but you do. You don't need to for anything to happen. You don't need to for him to intervene in your life. You don't need to for anything except that he wants you to come to him. That's a conversation he wants to have with you. But what he's going to do whether or not you do it in some formal way. Now, he may wait on you to come to him because he's going to wait just to make you learn a lesson of coming to him. But it's not that coming to him is the magical thing. It's coming to him is that he sometimes may wait to do something for you because you're not doing your relationship with him. It's a relational thing. It's like I said, the parent watching the child, and I might just sit here going, okay, I'm not helping you till you ask. I know what you need. Now, if it gets really bad, I'm going to walk over and help anyway, right? But as long as it doesn't look so bad, I'm going to sit here and wait for you to come to me. So it's not that the prayer or the child asking is the magical thing. It's just that I needed you to learn to do that, to trust me and look towards me. So that's the whole point of prayer. It's not about, well, if I pray, it makes something happen. That would be much more pagan idea of like incantations and magic and that kind of stuff, okay? Let's not think about that. Oh, the power of prayer. Well, prayer is effective. It says the righteous prayer, or the prayer of a righteous one has a lot of effect and is powerful. But that's because of the relationship, okay? So your praying is a relational activity between you and your Creator. He wants you to have that relationship, and that's the main conversational or main communication form that we have with him is prayer, okay? The other communication, so there's two main communications, prayer and reading the Word. He talks to us in the Word, we talk to him in prayer, okay? And then sometimes he talks to you through a leadership person. Like when you get counsel, that can happen as well, all right? Did that help? Okay, good. All right, Selena.
Two different aspects. So like after the election, I saw a lot of, I'm not on social media a lot because it rots my brain, but there was a lot of women angry at men, and men shouldn't be allowed to live, and men have all these opportunities and women are just dumped on. And I completely understand how somebody could get to that thought process. Like, it's wrong, but I know how they got there. So, and then I was listening to a Mark Manson podcast the other day, and this kid wrote in and wanted some YouTuber to be his dad because he didn't have a dad. And that just breaks my heart. So, my boys are graduating this year. Their friends that we've been close to are graduating this year. And what would you tell a young man that's going out into the world in this culture, in this, my kids, they're tall, they're loud, and but they're polite, but they're going out into this world that is just, it seems like men are just accused of everything. And
I wouldn't understand that at all.
like,
all right, look.
What do they need to know?
All right. So first of all, you need to know that you're in but not of the world. Also, you need to know that you need to not care what the world thinks about everything. Okay? You need to care what the above thinks about everything, what Yahweh thinks about it. You don't need to care about what everybody else thinks about everything, because the world is not going to love you. So Yeshua said the world hated me, they're going to hate you too, at different times for different reasons. Okay? So you don't have to worry about that. But what you do need is to know where you want to go, who you want to be, and then find mentors to get you there. Don't listen to everybody. Find somebody that, I think Michael said it really nicely in the little thing he read, somebody that is where you want to be or has what you want to have, is doing what you want to do, and finding out how to do that too, okay? We need mentors. We need guidance, but they have to be ones that already are where we want to be in life, or have what we want to have in life, whether it's health, relationships, finances, whatever. They have already accomplished, and don't listen to all the loudmouth crazies, okay? There's more of them than anything else. but you can go find what you need. And you need to then lock in, block out with like blinders, all that other noise, and just go do what you need to do. Did you guys hear that? All right. Okay, so I know you boys are over there, so, okay?
Thank you.
But that's for all of you. I don't care how old you are, all right? If you're gonna do anything different than the crazy world, which you should be, you don't wanna do what they're doing, then you should also know that they're not gonna be thrilled that you're doing something different than them or how they see things. So as soon as they find out you're different or think different or act different, you're gonna have a problem. Elder gets emails every week, all the time about people have problems with him, me, whatever, especially after he teaches, they'll have some problem. Somebody will have some problem because they won't see the world or scripture or whatever the way you do or the way we do, right? So we're gonna get grief about things. That's normal, guys, okay? So okay, here's the main thing. All you guys who have a problem, especially the blue colored ones, right? Right, we have the color code thing. Don't fall into pleaser mode. Okay, the white color also does that because they're afraid if I can at least be a pleaser, they'll leave me alone, I'll have peace. Pleaser mode is only gonna cause you more grief than it's gonna benefit you. Don't go into pleaser mode, okay? Because that's just, I've never seen it pay off in a good way, all right? Okay, now tactically, there may be a moment to do a little bit of pleasing for a result because you have a reason, but I'm saying in general, do not go into pleaser mode. That's just misery, because now you're not gonna be you. You're gonna be manipulated by whoever you're trying to please in whatever's going on in your life. And most of you are jacked up because that's exactly what your parents did or your friends did when you were younger. And so you have a hard time now being you fully the way you need to be because pleaser mode wrecked you, okay? All right, Delia.
So Olivia, with her question about, people saying that they're gonna pray for her, but the thing is that I find through many years and watching others go through their health issues and going through that same thing that people will say they'll come and pray for you and stuff. But then I wonder on the other side of it that, it's not always prayer that a person needs. It might be a doing kind of thing.
Sure.
That a person needs.
Sure.
And I find that there's a lot of shortage in that area.
Well, because it's the simpler way out to simply say, I'll pray for you, than actually do something. Isn't that what James talks about? All right, in James 2, where he talks about, for your brother has need of this or that, and you say, I'll pray for you, what use is that? Instead of actually providing with the need, okay? So, yeah.
So,
there's a shortage of that.
I've, through my walk, what I've been going through, I have, had become angry about that. Not only in my situation, but the 15 years that my mother was very ill and what would happen to her about that.
Right.
And so the thing is that, and I kept trying to figure out, I couldn't understand why people were like that, and it would hurt and it would make me angry, okay? And so the thing is that I find the same people are doing always, and there's not enough relief for them. Others look and say, okay, that's being taken care of. I see it being taken care of, but maybe there needs to be a relief for the person who's doing.
Sure. I agree. We may just need to put a team together that could rotate and do things, and that's a good thing that we might be able to do. If somebody wants to volunteer to head something up, like where we can have a caring team that could be paying attention to those that have need, and then finding a way to make sure that need is covered and rotated so the burden doesn't just fall on a few people, that's something that's a good thing we could do.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. We're going to have Shira, you're going to be last.
My heart got so full when you were talking and answering that question about prayer and why he wants us to pray, but why we don't need to. And I just thank you so much for that teaching. It has revolutionized a big part of my relationship with Father, because now with this understanding, he wants to be my dad. He wants me to relate to him as a father. And so the prayer is not to get him anymore to do stuff, which I did so much of that in my past life. But the way he comes when I offer those requests to him, the wisdom I get, the correction I get, the love and comfort that comes to me through just bringing it to him with that yielded heart is amazing. And I just want to thank you for teaching me that.
Amen. Amen. Appreciate that. Look, I think that, man, I think almost everything we've learned, a lot of it is still right, but we still see it in sort of slightly skewed ways. Prayer is a very important part of our vertical relationship. It's just not necessarily the way we were taught about it, okay? I don't do, you like it or not like it, I don't do a lot of formal prayer, okay? I talk to him every day. I don't always do it in a very formal way. Sometimes I do. It just depends, but I don't do it in like some formal way where I have to set aside this time and I'm gonna sit in a certain position or be on my knees or do this other thing. I talk to him when I need to talk to him. And I talk to him in a very respectful way, in an intimate way that I have this relationship. And when I have need, I talk to him quite a bit about the need if I have a need, okay? All right? And that being said, you know, I think it's really important. Like, okay, so for example, I think I said this in the zone meetings. I'm gonna say it all to you guys and be vulnerable in front of all you guys. I had some stuff come up recently that caused me to actually have anxiety. I didn't know what that was. My system was all out of whack. I didn't know what to call it. I'm guessing that's what it was. I don't know what the label it was. A little bit of a panic attack, anxiety thing. Now, I didn't have it in the way that some of you do, because being me, I was just like, this thing is disturbing my peace, and I don't know what it is. It wasn't debilitating me. So, but I have an empathy and an understanding now more for you guys. Maybe that's why you let me go through it. But it also allowed me to examine things in my life that were triggered to make me feel that way, that I could then own, repent of if necessary, clean up, whatever it was, adjust. And so I did a lot of talking to him about that, because I was like, why am I all messed up right now? I don't know what this feeling is. Okay? Which is good news for you guys in that I got to now have a lot of empathy and sympathy for what you feel. Maybe that's why he let me go through it, because I was asking my wife, what in the world is this? Okay, I'm distracted. I have my butterflies in my belly, whatever it is, and all that. I mean, so some of these things you would know as the symptoms, whatever, and it was just sort of, I guess, a panicky sort of impending doom something, you know. But you know what? When I did all the things that I believe he said to do to deal with it, it went away. And so that's where the peace comes from. But I had to make some changes. I had to make some adjustments. I had to deal with some things that needed to be dealt with. Don't ask what it was. It doesn't. You might think it was dumb, or you might think it was giant. It doesn't matter. It was my thing, right? So, and don't try to guess what it was. It doesn't matter either. It could have been this and that or whatever it is. It doesn't, because you know you can have this over health. You can have it over relationships. You can have it over money. You can have it over anything. Okay, but this was my thing. And it got my attention about some things that I was not prioritizing properly, that I needed to stop doing or start doing and that kind of thing. And it worked beautifully for that. It was no fun to go through, so I have now a feeling of empathy for you guys when you go through it. So praise Yah for that, all right? And so I didn't know what to label it, though. I hadn't had that, really, okay? So, you know, and it doesn't matter. But the thing is, it was an experience that I now value because I learned a lot from it, right? And I'm not the same person because of it. And that's what I want to encourage you too. If you go through those kind of things, you could be a different person because of it, if you could figure out what's causing it and deal with it, okay? I didn't just ignore it. I tried to understand what was causing it and deal with it, all right? So I just want to give you that little encouragement. But it has to do with the idea of prayer, right? I did pray quite a bit at various times as to how to deal with this thing. And then I trusted that once I figured it out, that it would go away and that I would trust because whatever it was finally resolved. Some of you are like, but my thing never gets resolved. That's because you haven't figured out how to resolve it yet, or you haven't gotten counsel on how to resolve it yet, okay? And so just want to give you encouragement with that. So next time you come to me dealing with panic attacks and that kind of thing, I have a better sense of understanding what you're going through, okay? And so I'll have a little bit more empathy. So that's also a good thing, amen? All right, excellent, zone 1.